What's up, YouTube? Seth back again with Lost Legion TCG, here to do my take on a trap Shaddoll deck. I decided to, in the beginning I tried to make this budget, and then I ended up putting a couple expensive cards in it, but it's still relatively budget. There's only a few, and when we get to those expensive cards, I will offer some budget options when we get there. Into the main board, we'll not waste any time here. 3 copies of Mathematician. This card's dirt cheap. You can get a common in the structure deck. Plus, it sends your Shaddolls, gets their effects. It's good. 3 copies of Shaddoll Wendy. This card is probably the best one to come out of the structure deck, in my opinion. The card's really good. Basically, if it's flip summoned, you summon one. If it's sent for by card effect, you summon one. It's just a really good card. 2 copies of Nael Shaddoll Ariel. I hope I said that right. Ariel is triple DD Crow. You'll sometimes send your app cologne with like by card effect to grab your Ariel and just pitch it so you can triple DD Crow your opponent. Next up, we play 3 copies of Squamata. Squamata is when it's sent to grave by card effect, you get to send another one. So it's essentially playing 3 additional copies of every other named Shaddoll monster. And its flip effect does pop a monster. That does come up sometimes. 2 copies of Shaddoll Hedgehog. Shaddoll Hedgehog is your spell and trap searcher of the deck. It's really good. 1 copy of Beast. You used to play a lot more Shaddoll Beasts than 1 used to max out, but now the whole deck just kind of slowed down and you only need the draw in very certain situations. Plus, special summoning it and then flipping it on your opponent's turn to draw 2 and then pitch an Ariel is just hilarious. 1 copy of Dragon for spell and trap removal, and 1 copy of Falco, mostly for the flip effect, Monster Reborn effect. That's it for the monsters. We don't play any hand traps because we play quite a hefty package of actual trap cards. The sideboard for this should be dedicated exclusively to going second. Spell cards, we play 3 copies of El Shaddoll Fusion. We've decided to max out on El Shaddoll Fusion since it's the quick play fusion spell. Just additional ways to make Winda during your opponent's turn. We play 3 copies of Super Poly. Card says your opponent cannot respond. Absolutely broken. Plus, a lot of decks right now are light or dark, so you can just get rid of a problematic card to make your own construct and plus. So, last spell is 1 copy of Shaddoll Fusion. I know you're probably thinking, Seth, you're an idiot. Why would you only play 1 copy of arguably the greatest fusion spell ever created? And 1, I would tell you wrong. The greatest fusion spell ever created is Invocation, not Shaddoll Fusion. But 2, it's because this is a going first build with a ton of trap cards. And Shaddoll Fusion only really shines, in my opinion, going second. The best part about Shaddoll Fusion is being able to use your materials from deck to make your monster. But you can't do that going first. So, like, you side the other 2 copies for when you know you have to go second, and then you just put them in and take some trap cards out. But going first, Shaddoll Fusion does nothing for you other than fusing materials you have in your hand, which El Shaddoll Fusion can do the exact same thing. Very small spell card package. You actually play mostly traps in this deck. 3 copies of Ice Dragon's Prison. If you told me that this was the best trap card in the game right now, I probably wouldn't spend too much time debating it with you. The card is insane. 3 copies of Sinister Shadow Games. I'm glad that we can play this card again. I'm glad that we're able to go first and slow the game down enough to play Sinister Shadow Games. Sends a card for effect, not for cost, and flips a Shaddoll. It's everything you want in a flip deck. It triggers your flip effect, and it triggers the effect of the one you sent, so you're just plussing off of interrupting your opponent, hopefully. And it's a really good card. We play 3 copies of Torrential Tribute. Torrential is honestly really good right now. Again, not something I thought I would be saying in 2021. I remember playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Like a year, 2 years ago, and telling everybody, oh, trap cards are dead. Trap cards are never coming back. And well, I'm here to tell you I was wrong, because one of the original trap cards is back and it's good again. We play 3 copies of Dogmatic of Punishment. We considered playing the Dear Servants and Ecclesias and all of that to search the punishments, and I opted to just play 3 copies of it and 2 copies of Trap Trick instead. Your Dogmatic of Punishment can send your Shaddoll fusions from extra deck to get their effects, to pop cards. You can plus and disrupt your opponent at the same time, which is always a good thing. Next up is 2 copies of Needle Sealing. If you decided to play 3 copies of Needle Sealing, I wouldn't argue with that either. Needle Sealing is basically Torrential with a slightly different activation condition. So Torrential activates when monster is summoned, and Needle Sealing just requires that there's 4 or more monsters on the field. They can be 2 monsters of yours, and you just destroy the whole board, trigger your Shaddoll effects in grave, and just continue to play the game. A couple of one-ofs to round out the main board. 1 Schism. You only need 1 Schism. You're going to search it every hand pretty much. 1 copy of Incarnation. You don't need to play Incarnation. I just like the card. It's my favorite one to dump off Construct. And the combo where you summon Construct with a Wendy to summon the Ariel, dump the Incarnation, turn the Construct into a Link monster, and then banish the Incarnation and the Construct to flip the Ariel and bring the Construct back is one of my favorite combos in the entire game. And the last card in the main deck is 1 Shaddoll Core, your trap monster. We will always play trap monsters when we find a way to. I think that they're so underrated as a game mechanic. The only really expensive card in the main board is Ice Dragon's Prison. If you cannot afford Ice Dragon's Prisons, I completely understand. Not everybody can pay $40 a card. Just play Solemn Strike, play Solemn Strike, play Solemn Judgment. Just play trap cards that are good for you. Play Impermanence if you have them. Play Lost Winds if you don't. Just put trap cards in that are good, and good things will happen. On to the extra deck. We play 3 copies of Construct. Construct is best girl. I was really happy when she came back. She is your play starter. You can cut her to 2 if you want, but I don't feel right playing Shaddolls with less than 3 now that she's unlimited again. 3 copies of El Shaddoll Winda. This is your win condition of the deck in most games. Most decks can't handle a Winda. Most decks can't handle the Winda plus all the trap cards with 1 special summon. So they're forced to waste resources such as like a Droplet or an Imperm or something to get rid of the Winda, and then they still have to play through your multiple interruptions in the back row. 2 copies of App Cologne. I thought about playing 3 because App Cologne is actually really good, but I opted to play 1 Shekinaga instead. I opted to play the Shekinaga instead of the 3rd App Cologne for the Virtual World matchup, because getting rid of something like the level 6 tuner to stop them from making a Cloud Castle or a Croco Dragon can be really difficult for them to play through. Depending on the hand, sometimes they open absolutely insane, there's nothing you can do and you just lose, but that's part of Yu-Gi-Oh! If you want to play a 3rd App Cologne, you can cut Construct to 2, you can cut Shekinaga entirely, you can cut Winda to 2. I play 2 Entis. Sometimes you have everything you need, so you can send the Entis off of the punishment for a double pop, and it comes up. Not as often as it would if you were playing the Dogmatica package, but again, I was trying to keep this not that expensive. 1 copy of Gravity Controller. You use this to remove your Construct from the board so you can add back what you dumped with the Construct, because sometimes you have to dump another fusion spell. Sometimes with the Construct, you'll dump the Schism, turn the construct, make sure you summon it in the extra monster zone, but then turn it into gravity controller and just add the schism back. It saves you from having to waste an app cologne for the resource. 1 copy of Verde Anaconda. We're playing a fusion deck, and Verde Anaconda is basically generic fusion support. If you have the Dragoon package, feel free to play it. You don't have to, but feel free to. 1 copy of Cross Sheep. Again, it's a fusion deck, and Cross Sheep's fusion effect is its best effect, in my opinion. So you'll use the Cross Sheep most of the time to link climb into your Boral Sword, which will be your game ender. That's it for the main board, guys. If you want to see a non-budget, fully competitive version of this deck, let us know in the comments. We'll break out the old Dogmatica package and show it to you guys. If you want to see anything in particular, give us a comment down below. Let us know how we're doing, and we'll see you next time.